Henry Smith.
Madam Deputy Speaker, thank you very much indeed for calling me to speak in this debate on the gracious address. In fact, it was 3 years ago this month that the Speaker called me in my maiden speech, and I can assure you, Madam Deputy Speaker, with your recent ruling, that I will be much more concise in this submission than I was in that maiden speech. I wanted to take the opportunity, though, to briefly support the measures that will be coming forward in the immigration bill that was announced in the other place yesterday. Last September, during the previous parliamentary session, I had the privilege of introducing a private member's bill called NHS Audit Requirements Foreign Nationals to seek to tackle the large-scale abuse that occurs of our National Health Service by people who should not be entitled to receive free NHS care. That bill came about as a result of my submitting Freedom of Information Act requests to every health trust in the country, asking how many foreign nationals they had treated and what level of costs that they had managed to recover from the treatment of those foreign nationals, either directly or more typically through reciprocal agreements that we have, such as the European Health Card Insurance Scheme. And the responses I got back, those which I did receive back, were really quite shocking. About half of all health trusts said that they didn't record information on the treatment of foreign nationals at all, and of those who did respond with data, many were confused. Some treated, for example, British citizens who had moved abroad or were indeed serving in the armed forces abroad as foreign nationals. Others only recorded EU nationals, some European Economic Area nationals, and generally the picture of how the National Health Service records and deals with the treatment of foreign nationals was, in, quite frankly, a very parlous state indeed. Madam Deputy Speaker, technically, people are entitled to free treatment on the NHS if they have been habitually residents in this country for a year or more. But the reality is that free treatment is available for people literally, in many cases, after they step off the plane and on arriving in this country. That's certainly the case where in my constituency I have Gatwick Airport within my boundaries, and there are reports of about, for example, about 150 heavily pregnant women arriving at Gatwick Airport every year, and my local area hospital, East Surrey, having to, of course, treat those women and take them through the pregnancy process through to birth. Indeed, they reported just this morning to me that often they see people presenting who have recently arrived at Gatwick Airport 35 weeks pregnant, and of course that is a burden on the National Health Service and is essentially an abuse of the generosity of our system. But the problem is much more wide-scale than that. Anybody presenting themselves to a local GP surgery is encouraged, the GPs are encouraged to register those individuals and not ask for eligibility as to whether those individuals should receive primary health care or indeed free health care on the NHS at all. And of course, once somebody is registered with a doctor's practice, they receive a National Health Service number and then are free to be referred on throughout the healthcare system without any further checks having taken place, and are often subject, in the majority of cases, to free prescriptions as well. So essentially what we have is not so much a national health service in this country, but an international health service. And I don't think anybody in this place would want to deny the very best treatment that our health system can offer to people in this country and around the world. But people should should properly be able to contribute to the system, and we should be able to recover the costs of foreign nationals who are treated on the NHS through those reciprocal arrangements that exist. Or, in cases where reciprocal arrangements don't exist, those costs should be directly recovered. Again this morning, my local acute healthcare trust, the Surrey and Sussex NHS Healthcare Trust, sent me an email detailing the latest figures available for the cost of the foreign nationals that they, to their credit, do audit receive treatment as being over £500,000, and yet the amount that they were able to recover through reciprocal arrangements and directly was only in the order of about £130,000. And that is a pretty typical picture across our health service and across the trusts up and down the country. I had the privilege last year as well to go on a visit to the immigration facilities at Gatwick Airport with my honourable friend, the member for Forester Dean, of course, the immigration minister. And as part of our discussions with immigration officials at the airport, we spoke to a desk officer who liaises with the Department of Health and NHS trusts to try and recover costs from people who have used the NHS as foreign nationals. And the picture that they presented was one whereby, again, only in a minority of cases were we successful in recovering costs from foreign nationals receiving treatment. Madam Deputy Speaker, this is a quite incredible situation that we have allowed to become commonplace in this country. If we look to other European countries, they are much more rigorous in ensuring that the treatment of foreign nationals, including Britain's, under their health system is properly recorded so that those costs can be recovered in the case of our European neighbours through the European Health Insurance Card scheme. And they do that by checking eligibility at the point that health services are received. So if somebody needs to see a doctor for primary care, then there is that gateway mechanism that they introduce. And of course, in the case of emergency treatment, of course it is important that care is delivered as soon as possible. But again, in terms of emergency treatment, it is commonplace in other countries for those costs to be recovered after the individual, of course, has been treated and stabilised and is in a position to be discharged. It is quite incredible that we don't do this, and that's why I am very supportive of the measures that have been announced in the Queen's speech to finally ensure that we have some rigour, because it is about fairness ultimately to the taxpayer who funds our NHS. It is right, I believe, that we have an NHS that is universally available regardless of the ability to pay, and it is right, I believe, that that system is largely paid for out of taxation. But it cannot be right that that system is then freely available to anybody arriving in this country without any meaningful checks. And I think that by introducing those sorts of checks to ensure that our health service is not abused in that way, we can restore confidence in our system and at the same time create greater fairness and additionally ensure that the health budget is not overburdened unnecessarily to the tune that it is at the moment of hundreds of millions of pounds.